Hello and welcome to today's webinar on fragrance, materials, innovation and regulation, the latest roundtable from Cosmetics Business's webinar series. I'm Julia Ray, I'm Head of Editorial at HPCI Media, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Constantly evolving trends in perfumery, both in fragrance and format, are today playing out against a backdrop of regulatory change. The climate crisis and consumer safety needs are putting pressure on the palette of aroma materials available to perfumers, and those in fragrance are constantly innovating to stay ahead. To help you meet these challenges and others head on, we have some fantastic experts to introduce you to. But before I hand over, I'd like to mention a few housekeeping details. Firstly, today's webinar will be available on demand if you would like to revisit or share the content at any stage. The last 20 minutes or so of this webinar will be devoted to a Q&A session, so do feel free to ask our experts anything that you like. You'll see a box for questions in front of you on the dashboard there, so do use this to send in any questions that you might have. With all of that said, it's my pleasure to now hand over to our first panelist.
Hello. I would like to discuss recent developments in regulation affecting fragrances, the significance of this for customers and industry, and how innovation and technology can offer ways to not only meet regulatory requirements, but to enhance customers' experience. My name is Glenn Moran. I work at CPL Aromas as part of our research and development team, and today I'd like to discuss the changes regarding fragrance allergens, the practical considerations that the industry needs to know, and how at CPL Aromas we believe that EcoBoost can provide an innovative, creative way to adapt to the changing regulatory environment. The regulations for fragrance allergens are very significant because they exist to ensure the safety of consumers. As responsible producers and as passionate consumers of perfumes and cosmetic products, it's really important for all of us to understand and follow the regulations. We need to meet our obligations, and we also need to ensure that we still provide a beautiful, enjoyable product for our customers. Change to the regulatory environment can be challenging for industry, but it also provides us with an opportunity to be creative, to find new ways of doing things, and to find a different way to give our customers a great sensory experience. In July 2023, the European Union introduced an amendment to their cosmetic regulation regarding the labelling of fragrance allergens in cosmetic products. For many years, cosmetic companies have been familiar with the need to label their products with the details of 26 different materials that are potential allergens, if they were present above a certain level. This level was 10 parts per million for leave-on products and 100 parts per million for wash-off products. Under the new regulations, the levels remain exactly the same, but the number of materials that must be declared has increased from 26 to 81. This new extended list includes both some aroma chemicals and some natural products such as orange or lavender essential oils. As before, it is required that these allergens are labelled on pack. The new regulations have quite a long implementation time. For new products, the deadline is the 31st of July 2026, and for existing products, the 31st of July 2028. However, these deadlines will come around quite rapidly, so producers should be aware and be planning for them already. And although these are EU regulations, we can see that they will have an impact in many other regions too. For example, Canada have already updated their regulations, and the state of California is implementing the EU guidelines within their Cosmetics Right to Know Act. Many of the GCC member states also refer to the EU annexes, so the additional labelling requirements will apply in these areas too. It's vital that all fragrance and cosmetic companies work together to meet the new regulations, but it's also important to understand some of the challenges that can arise. The most visible impact may be on the outer packaging of the product. With many more materials now being classified as allergens, existing products will in many cases require much more labelling on the packaging than was needed previously. Traditional fragrance creation is likely to produce fragrances that require very lengthy labelling, which may not be appealing to customers, either from a safety or an aesthetic viewpoint. In some cases, it may be a struggle to find sufficient space on the packaging for all the additional labelling that is required. Now, we all know that beautiful artwork and packaging are a key part of the customer experience, so that's why at CPL Aromas we have taken a fresh approach to fragrance creation, where we use our EcoBoost technology as a solution. EcoBoost is a technology that everyone at CPL Aromas is very proud of, which we've used now for many years and which we have developed and refined, and represents a complete shift in the approach to fragrance creation. With EcoBoost, We use just 10% of the normal fragrance dosage, with no compromise in strength or quality. This unique concentration technology allows us to use far lower levels of fragrance in cosmetic products. These are not simply concentrated fragrances, they are backed by many years of testing, data and research and development, and allow us to produce distinctive, strong and beautiful fragrances which are effective at 10% or less of the typical dosage of a high-performing traditional fragrance creation. This is very significant because, as you'll recall, the labelling of fragrance allergens is concentration related. By using much lower dosages of fragrance, we can create beautiful fragrances with far fewer components present above the threshold level where labelling requirements are triggered. Every fragrance is different, but we have shown that in most cases, EcoBoost fragrances require far less labelling of allergens than an equivalent standard fragrance. This is a great technology that allows us to maintain the labelling on pack to a level that's manageable and practical for the cosmetic manufacturer, and most importantly doesn't compromise on consumer safety. EcoBoost offers additional benefits as well. In particular, CPL and our clients around the world have found that the concentrated nature of EcoBoost means that we do not waste energy and costs unnecessarily. The concentrated nature of EcoBoost means that it has a better carbon footprint, less energy is used in its manufacture, less material is used in packaging. The reduced amount of packaging also results in lower packaging costs for the manufacturer and an improved ecological and environmental profile. Shipping costs are also reduced. This is because the shipping costs are typically calculated by weight, so less weight equals lower costs. At the end of the product life, disposal costs are also reduced. Smaller and fewer drums leads to lower costs. CPL Aromas performed a case study in 2021, collating information from all stages of the product life, where we were able to confirm that using an EcoBoost fragrance saves, on average, 90% of our customers' CO2 emissions compared to a standard fragrance. For the cosmetic product formulator, another exciting benefit of EcoBoost fragrances are that they are typically more compatible with the product base. It is much easier to incorporate a lower fragrance dosage into the final product, and consequently, there is an improvement in fragrance stability too. With traditional fragrance formulation, a lot of active is used in many final products just to ensure the fragrance is soluble and stable in the final application, but this is much less of a challenge when the fragrance dosage is only 10% of a typical level. Our perfumers love the creative advantage that EcoBoost gives them. The reduced dosage allows them to use materials in different ways which would not be possible at a regular dosage, and this provides a real point of artistic difference. The labelling requirements that I've already mentioned are a final, extra reason why we think that EcoBoost can be a great option in many circumstances. It allows us to dramatically reduce or potentially even remove the on-pack labelling requirements of allergens. The ability to use concentrated fragrances allows us to use a wider palette of raw materials and to address odour areas that could be very challenging to meet otherwise with the new labelling requirements, without necessitating lengthy and unwieldy lists of potential allergens. Our perfumers continuously work on new creations, always adding to the elegance and complexity of the EcoBoost fragrances that we've been creating. We now have many highly sophisticated but also impactful EcoBoost fragrances created in line with current market trends, including clean, natural and biodegradable.
CPL Aromas. Let's create together.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Mark Lockyer. I'm the Commercial Director and Shareholder of Sampling Innovations Europe. We're proud to participate in the round table today, and I'm excited to show you some of our latest innovations in sustainable fragrance sampling. I've been involved in the business for more than 20 years, and I'm passionate about helping beauty brands to be more impactful, sustainable and successful in their sampling campaigns. At Sampling Innovations, we're experts in delivering profitable and innovative solutions in the field of samples, single dose, deluxe minis, discovery sets, and refill packs. Here you can see our factory in Sabadell, just outside of Barcelona. We produce and pack numerous different products to the highest standards, certified by ISO, EcoVadis, and SMETA. We offer a complete full service from design and concept through to the production and delivery, offering the widest range of formats and solutions, specifically designed for beauty, fragrance and personal care brands. This includes sachet, vials, thermoforms, scent labels, miniature tubes, jars and dropper bottles, among many others. So let's look at the latest sustainable options for sampling perfume. So let me introduce you to the world's first 100% paper, fully recyclable fragrance scented label, Scent Green. We're really proud to distribute Scent Green to the European market in exclusive partnership with Adhesipack. They have developed and patented the world's first 100% paper, fully recyclable scent label in collaboration with Suzano Green Pack Paper. Scent Green label removes the need for plastic and aluminium, ensuring your perfume samples are easily recyclable and sustainable without any compromise to the olfactive performance or quality of the fragrance. The Scent Green label allows consumers to simply open and experience perfume affixed to any kind of magazine insert, promotional postcard, leaflet or flyer. And importantly, it's resealable, so it's easy to share with friends and family. Scent Green can be fully printed and customized to suit any brand, ensuring a highly cost-effective and sustainable sample. In summary, Scent Green is 100% paper, easily recyclable, compostable in just 154 days, and significantly reduces carbon footprint. Scent Green won the Luxback in Green Awards for innovation in 2023, and we're really proud to offer this solution to our clients. We would love to offer a test for anyone that's interested to try this. All we need is 1 kilogram of pure concentrated fragrance oil to show you how well this could work for your brand. A step further, we can also use the Scent Green technology in a ticket format specifically designed to capture attention within stores. As you can see on the video here, Ticket Scent enables a consumer to take and immediately experience a fragrance. It's a really innovative way to capture attention in any retail environment, with dispensers custom designed in many different styles or materials to ensure a brand really stands out and encourages trial. It's really easy to load and replace the roll of ticket samples. The unique dispensing system activates the fragrance only as the sample is taken to help ensure fragrance longevity and maximize the olfactive accuracy. Here is another sustainable solution that offers a great alternative to a classic glass vial. Cost-effective, quick to produce, and designed in a shape to beautifully apply fragrance drop by drop, as you'll see now. You simply snap open. You can see the product's not coming out until you apply some pressure, drop by drop. Our thermoform is made of material that contains up to 80% PCR, so it's a really sustainable option. Many standard and custom shapes are available and can be fully printed or transparent and presented in all kinds of beautiful cards or wallets. Finally, I want to finish by talking about discovery sets, which are highly profitable samples that can be sold as gifts for any occasion. Discovery sets educate consumers about a range of different fragrances and encourage an informed purchase decision of larger sizes. They're a great way to encourage initial brand trial. Consumers absolutely love them, and the design and packaging options really are endless to suit each brand or budget. Here you can see many different styles, incorporating classic sampling vials, presented in different types of wallets, retail display trays, folding boxes and cartons of different styles. Here's some in rigid boxes, beautiful luxury. In a leather purse, or even presented in some kind of tin. The options to suit your brand really are endless. You can also offer different size vials with more luxury or travel sizes, such as 10 ml, for instance. Of course, discovery sets don't only have to use vials. You could perhaps consider a collection of thermoforms in a nice wallet or presented in carton. or a collection of the old scent green scented labels, enabling trial of a fragrance collection in any way you wish. In conclusion, there are many creative and sustainable fragrance sampling options available to you. It remains as crucial as ever for brands to sample in raising awareness, encouraging trial and boosting sales. And a well-designed and accurately distributed sample can deliver amazing results in a sustainable way, whilst educating consumers to make an informed purchase decision, further reducing waste and environmental impact. Scent Green offers a fully recyclable paper solution in a label form to enhance promotional inserts or flyers, or as a ticket scent to boost visual impact and encourage trial in stores. Thermoforms offer a drop-by-drop alternative to glass vials with a reduced weight of plastic incorporating high levels of PCR. Discovery sets in the various forms to suit each brand, sold as a highly targeted and profitable gift or sampling experience. Thanks for your attention. It's been a huge pleasure to contribute to this roundtable, and I hope we can be of assistance to your brand, creating a positive impact with sustainable samples or profitable discovery sets. Many thanks to Julia and the team at Cosmetics Business. I hope you found this useful, and we look forward to answering any questions. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to the live Q&A session of this roundtable webinar. We hope you've been inspired and educated by both of today's presentations. As you can see, myself, Glenn and Mark are joined now by Laura Hernando, who is Global Regulatory Affairs Manager at CPL Aromas. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Fantastic. So, to you, our viewers, if you'd like to know anything further, now is your chance to send in your questions for our panelists on all things fragrance related. So I can see that some of you already have, which is excellent. And we will attempt to answer as many questions as possible in the next 20 minutes or so. So to begin, what are the differences between natural and synthetic fragrance ingredients in terms of performance and safety?
Can I answer that one?
Yes, okay, Glenn.
So it's not always, there's often a lot of misconception that people assume that maybe natural products are going to be safer than synthetic products. Not necessarily the case. All materials that are used in fragrances have to be by definition safe. They have to be used at safe levels. They need to be on the approved list. But sometimes you can get complications with some naturals. You may have more allergens, for example, present in natural mixtures than you would have from simply synthetic compounds. So the honest thing is that every fragrance needs to be taken on its own merits, and each raw material that's used needs to be used at a safe dosage in accordance with guidelines. I wouldn't say there is a clear-cut definition between natural and synthetic at all. They're simply different things. And safety is not the thing that distinguishes them.
Yeah. So technically all safe.
Yes, they absolutely should be. Yes.
If I can just add something, yeah. So as Glenn was saying, either natural and synthetic ingredients are all assessed by the cosmetic industry, by the scientifics at the RIFM, at the Research of Institute of Fragrance Materials, and as well all assessed by IFRA. So they are all treated in the same way in terms of safety.
Excellent. And we have a question that's come in asking, what are key trending fragrance types at the moment? So what scents are we seeing demand for?
Oh, wow. Well, there's so many complex, different trends happening at the same time. But I'd say at the minute we're seeing probably a bit of a swerve towards kind of more indulgence, more luxury, and greater complexity. I think that things. There's always a trend and a counter trend. So a little while ago, everything was kind of towards minimalism, watercolor style of fragrances, very elegant but minimalized, and that's beautiful in its own right. Then you kind of get the counter trend against it, which is that kind of maximalized trend, where people want maybe a more exuberant style. And I think perhaps especially after even I interpret it after sort of the sort of pandemic era, where our horizons were a little bit narrowed. I think people want experience, want some joy, and want really a big experience, and want to be bold and expressive. And I think that's kind of the trend. So in terms of particular styles of fragrance, I would say kind of big, strong, sort of amber aspects. You hear of the kind of trend for sort of beast mode in fragrances. I think that's definitely happening a lot, and we like EcoBoost for that as well, because they can be very powerful fragrance when we need them to be as well. So we can use it as a way of giving you that kind of statement, fragrance, which people often look for.
And on the topic of EcoBoost, we actually have somebody obviously responding to your presentation there, asking how does EcoBoost help in having less allergens? If it is a concentrated fragrance oil with a lower dosage, the allergens in the final product should be the same. So maybe you can kind of answer that for them.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, no, after you.
I can answer that. So EcoBoost technology is a technology that performs in the same level that, let's say, a traditional fragrance, but in a lower dosage. So as you know, the allergens and the requirement of labeling allergens in cosmetics on pack is depending on certain thresholds. So if the allergen is above certain threshold in the finished cosmetic product that it's placed on the market, then it needs to be stated on the label. So because EcoBoost is working at the lower dosage, it means that in the finished product, those potential allergens will be lower, so it will not be enough to trigger the threshold for labeling. That's how EcoBoost is helping label less allergens on pack.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that answers that question. I'm sure it does. So we have one here, which might be a good one for Mark, asking how are companies reducing their environmental footprint when it comes to fragrance?
With regards to fragrance or fragrance sampling?
Well, fragrance in general, but I imagine sampling plays into that. So how can you help your customers reduce their footprints when it comes to sampling fragrances?
Yeah, certainly. So I hope you saw on the presentation some of the kind of the latest innovations in fragrance sampling. And one thing I would just like to particularly highlight is actually before you even decide on the specific sampling format you might choose, the actual kind of targeting and accurate distribution of samples is possibly the single most impactful thing you can do to reduce environmental impact in your sort of sampling activity. So reducing waste of samples ending up in the hands of people that in a million years is not the right kind of target audience for your fragrance. So I think that the first thing is, definitely look at the ways of sampling and whether they're requested samples or whether you're kind of just randomly throwing them out in store at events, etc. So definitely targeting of sampling activity is really important, and then you can obviously evaluate the materials that you're using, the formats that you're choosing, and pleased to say huge amount of innovation and developments in that space, not least the 100% paper fully recyclable scent green label that I talked about earlier. So lots of options available. What is also true to say, just to finish on that subject, is there isn't probably a one size fits all perfect solution for every situation. So it's very much important for each case, understanding your brand, your product, your target audience, your distribution route, your budget, and then evaluate the choices that are available to you to minimise your environmental impact on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, no one size fits all, as you say. So we've got a question through asking, what are the current requirements for labeling fragrance ingredients on consumer products? You talked a little bit about labeling there. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
Well, maybe if just to clarify this point, so the labeling requirements in cosmetic products in Europe are like if the allergen that is listed on the cosmetic regulation is on the finished product above 100 ppm and 10 ppm, depending if it's a leave-on or a rinse-off product, then it means that the name of the allergen that is on the regulation written, especially when it comes to the new extended allergen list. In certain cases, we have groups of allergens that the regulation defines exactly what's in the inky name that you need to place on your label. So it's worth reviewing those thresholds, and it will depend if it's a leave-on product, you will need to label more allergens, and if it's a rinse-off product, then the threshold is a little bit better. So yeah, those are the requirements, are depending on the quantity of the allergen in the finished product.
Apologies, I was on mute. Sorry, guys, just to add my own question in there as well. Mark, when it comes to sampling, do you have to label allergens for samples as well? Is that something that's necessary?
In honesty, it's a bit of a grey area, but yeah, absolutely. I think if you're in the area of anything that's going to be applied to the skin, then absolutely the ingredients and the allergen information should really be on there. So you should, in terms of directions for use and ingredients and etc., should largely follow what would be on retail packaging.
Yeah, I can add something to that in case it's useful for anyone on the audience, is that Cosmetics Europe has, well, years ago published a guideline of labeling for cosmetic products. And in certain cases, like ingredients, if it's like a small packaging, like less than 5 milliliters, or it's in practical packaging, depending on how and everyone defines impracticability, you can put like an icon that is on one of the annexes of the cosmetic regulation, and then state the ingredients in a leaflet, touch packaging, or any other way that it will end up in the consumer. So for those ones that struggle labeling packaging in very small struggle labeling allergens in very small packaging or in practical packaging, it's a very good document to get support from.
Really interesting, and I'm sure it's incredibly helpful as well. So we've got somebody asking here, how should companies address demand for transparency in ingredient disclosure? Because I feel like this is becoming more of a thing now. How would you go about doing that as a fragrance company?
Well, we always try to be very transparent with things that are about consumer safety and things like that. So everyone has to be transparent there, and transparency about the sourcing of our materials is really important too. So most fragrance companies will actually be very proud of their sourcing. You know, you're dealing, you know, in sustainable ways. That's you know, with really well chosen partners. Actually, that's not something we're shy about. You know, it's something we're very proud of and we want to share with people. So we try to be very open on many things, but we also need to protect our customers, you know, who don't want their fragrances, you know, counterfeited. So there'll always be a certain amount of information that's confidential, you know, to protect the manufacturer. But actually, we find that fragrance companies are getting more and more open, because actually we feel that we're doing a lot of very good work. We're dealing with a lot of great sustainability stories, you know, some great suppliers, some really nice work that's being done in the world, and that gives beautiful fragrances. And I think people also invest more in the fragrance when they understand a little bit more about what they're smelling and where it's come from. You know, it actually helps people to invest and feel that attachment to it. So I think generally transparency is a good thing that we embrace as far as we possibly can. in terms of regulations, then it's not negotiable. It's absolutely, we have to be transparent.
Mandatory, yeah. Wonderful. So I've got somebody here quite literally saying, I have a question for Mark. So Mark, get ready for it. In your opinion, which sampling format is the most relevant and cost effective for e-commerce with that right balance between environmental impact and quality and brand equity as well?
That's a great question. And first things first, I think e-commerce is probably the single biggest sort of trend in ways of sampling, and brilliant opportunity to be highly targeted, delivering a sample into the home of a target consumer. So highly recommend sampling through e-commerce as a starting point. In terms of the best way to do it, given the level of the sort of targeting, etc., and perhaps is that being supplied with a purchase of your brand, or is it being provided through a third-party retailer where they could be produced directly? I think there's some differences in terms of what is suitable specifically for that occasion and for your brand. So, for instance, if someone has parted with their hard-earned money buying a bottle of perfume from your brand from £50 to £100, say, I think to drop in a card with a scented label is probably not the right solution, as much as that's something that we would love to do. A more premium vial, or even, dare I say it, a discovery set that introduces that consumer to the full range of fragrances, etc., is a really captive moment to educate and introduce a consumer to your range of fragrances. So I think I'll definitely go down the premium route. I'll definitely seek to give added value with that purchase, especially if it's with they purchased directly from your own brand website. If it's through third parties, then you need to be a little bit clearer in terms of what conditions the samples are being delivered through, and perhaps be a little bit more conscious of budget and costs and what the return on investment might be. But definitely, I think it's an opportunity at home, captive audience, immediately able to use and share with partners, loved ones, others that might appreciate those samples. So be generous. There often is the opportunity through there to the samples be hand selected and personalised to that consumer as well, which again highly encouraged. And when it's requested, it's seen as you're reducing waste. It's a sample that someone's actually asked to try. You're reaffirming their purchase decision and avoiding something that they're not going to like or want to have. So I think it's a really sort of positive experience to enable someone to select what sample they have on the front of kind of reducing environmental impact, etc. So I think again, lots of options available depending on your budget. Final point I'll just make there in terms of budget and opportunities is the secondary packaging is and the ways of presenting samples can both create a wow impact, and two, offer opportunities to minimise sort of cost of samples. Don't hold back on the primary sample itself. Ensure that has a real great impact on consumer experience. The way that you present that and package that is what can either make you totally stand out and have a real sort of creative wow impact, or if the budget is tight, you can really sort of cut back on the secondary packaging in order to reduce your costs.
Yeah, absolutely. E-commerce is such a great potential discovery moment there, so some really good food for thought. So we have a question here for CPL, again about EcoBoost. So obviously, reiterating that EcoBoost is a concentrated fragrance oil. So do you succeed in educating your customers so that they then accept the higher prices of this technology? Interesting comment there.
One of the big advantages of EcoBoost is that there's often a cost benefit to our customers, because the fragrance is much more powerful, so it is incorporated at a lower dosage, and as you'd expect, that means there's tends to be a higher cost per kilogram, but the actual cost in use, when you work it out, is actually usually quite favourable to the customer. In fact, always favourable to the customer, and there's a good reason for that, because we're not because we're moving smaller amounts of fragrance around. We're not spending as much money on transportation costs. We're not spending an awful lot more money on packaging, and that actually tends to come through to the customer. And you've got to think, with old-fashioned traditional fragrance formulation, you're finding in fragrances there's quite a lot of things like solvent, which is the customer's paying really for moving things around that don't contribute anything to the final product, don't contribute any smell. You're moving. There's always a cost to moving this stuff around the world. There's an environmental cost and there's a financial cost. By cutting that fat out of the formula and doing a lot of other things to make sure that the fragrance is actually very high impact. It's not simply concentrated. They're very carefully formulated fragrances to give us the right effect, and we end up being able to pass a lot of cost benefit on to the customer. So certainly, maybe the first time we explain it, there's a little bit of education, but the best way to do it is as with all fragrance, the best thing to do is to smell it. Once you smell it and you work through the cost, they be convinced very quickly, because the proof of the pudding is in the smelling for us. So that tends to work for us.
Fantastic, beautifully explained there. I like the idiom. Wonderful. So we've got somebody here asking, or this one is one for Laura, I think, because it's regulatory, asking, with the regulation around benzophenone 3, if we're planning to remove benzophenone 3 completely, what would be recommended as an alternative?
Well, benzophenone 3 is in fact not that highly used inside the fragrances, and it's a UV filter. So I'm not an expert on formulating, because I speak about regulations, and it's not that much of an issue in general terms. But I guess that there are other UV filters, alternative ones in the market that can help there.
Okay, interesting. So maybe the wrong chat. Maybe that was one for our April roundtable on sun care there. So we have one here asking, what challenges are there in maintaining the quality and consistency of fragrance materials? Because obviously, I'm guessing there's a lot of things like climate change. You have, maybe local weather issues. We're talking about natural crops. I mean, how do you ensure consistency?
Well, yeah, there are challenges for the reasons you've said, and the best. There's two approaches really. One, we can do a lot of testing. We analyze a lot of samples from our suppliers, ensuring that what comes in is at the quality that we expect it to be, and assessing lots of alternative suppliers. But actually, the best thing to do, as well as thorough testing, the best thing to do is actually to go and visit your suppliers, understand your suppliers, and work in partnership with them. And so we've got a lot of long-term partners who all around the world, and we're able to kind of work with them, see what they need, understand the pressures that they're under as well, and it helps us to anticipate issues that can arise, try and make sure we've got a really robust supply chain in that sense. And as to what those pressures are, there's the ones you mentioned. Climate change is unavoidable. Well, actually, that might not be true. It might be avoidable, but it's a real world thing. Yeah, let's hope it's avoidable, but it's a real world event that we can't ignore. And so we try to support our suppliers, make sure that they are doing the right things with their sustainability, that we're doing the right thing with our sustainability, we're all making our contribution. And then there's other challenges that can happen as well. Conflict in different parts of the world. Things that you maybe a perfume company can't anticipate, but we can try and make sure we have really good relationships with suppliers, or so that we have alternatives when these things happen. And as with any kind of manufacturing process, trying not to be sort of too reliant on one or two materials or one or two suppliers, but we build really strong partnerships with a number of suppliers. We have a really good relationship, really good trust, and I think having that kind of sustainable partnership and where you treat your suppliers really well means that when there is pressure on supply, you're in a position to help one another as well. So I think that's quite important. And it applies particularly with natural products, but even synthetic materials, there can be pressures come about for unexpected reasons, and that's where you need really good creative perfumers as well. So you can make sure you're formulating with materials that you have a good supply of. Don't just grab an exotic material that you might not be able to get next week. You try and make sure before you get to the point of creation, make sure that you have established your supply chain. So it's a complicated area, and obviously we have to do a lot of testing to make sure that we maintain quality. But the first thing to do is to get ahead of the game. Make sure you visit your suppliers, understand everything about them. You need to become an expert in lots of different raw materials, and also to have the humility to accept the input from the growers. The people who've been growing these materials maybe for generations. They know a lot about it, and they know what they need to help keep their supply chain in order to.
Absolutely. So it sounds like a group effort. Everyone scratches each other's backs to make sure that the end consumer gets that finished fragrance that they know and love. So we've got an interesting one here asking, what is a clean fragrance? Now, is there an answer to that, or what's the closest thing that we can come to an answer for that?
Okay.
Sorry, you are volunteering this tribute.
There's not an industry definition or a legal definition, but fragrance companies may have their own definition. So at CPL, we have a very clear definition of what we decide is clean, which we will sell. Before we will sell a fragrance as clean, we have quite a strict set of guidelines that a fragrance has to adhere to. But another company may have a different interpretation of that rule. So it's not no legal definition of it, but it's really important for a fragrance company to be very clear about how they determine that a fragrance is clean. Laura can probably give a better example of our clean definition.
Well, yes, there are multiple factors that define a clean fragrance as the definition that the majority of the companies do. One of them is like allergens, but there are other things like other materials that are as well, let's say, under discussion in the European authorities for some bans, or there is some grounds of concern. So those materials sometimes are as well part of the clean definition of the industry. So it's not a single thing that makes a fragrance clean. It's like multiple things that make the definition. But as Glenn was saying, there is no definition of clean. So each company does their best to get their clean definition.
Well, yeah. So I hope that helps. It's up to you to define it. There you go. We have, again, a very specific question for Mark here about Sampling Innovations. What minimum order quantities does Sampling Innovations work with?
For us, typical, it always varies according to the project and specifications, etc. But a rough rule of thumb, minimum order quantities would normally be 10,000 units. And that can often be split across perhaps 2 or 3 different versions or sort of product varieties, so long as they're using the same sort of format. So yeah, that sort of quantity. To some brands, that sounds excessively high. To lots of brands, that's ridiculously low. In terms of the comment on the ridiculously high, I mean, we've worked with a number of very niche startup brands who, on first order, have managed to convince themselves they had to sample, and okay, we'll have to accept 5,000 or 10,000 units. It's been amazing how quickly they've come back to us for a reorder because of a specific event or through their website. Things have just gone through the roof, and the opportunity of having samples and being able to really sort of capture the consumer far outweighs the additional cost of not having those samples. So the other thing I'll just finally sort of touch on is you can always have less, but it's going to there's kind of minimum fixed costs of sort of starting up production machines, etc. And in the world of sampling, and small doses and small sizes tends to be running on sort of quite fast run machines. So you kind of turn the machine on, and 25 minutes later you've already got 1,000 sort of samples produced, etc. So in order to make it sensible in terms of a couple of hours running and a shift pattern, etc., that's why we have those sort of MOQs. But in the vast majority of cases, and even very niche premium luxury 5,000 samples, if well targeted and distributed, can be used up extremely quickly and have a huge impact on the sales and profitability for the brand.
Fantastic. And we have to go to the other side now. A question on EcoBoost asking, how does it work technically? So how do you reach that high impact without reducing the solvent? And also she asked, is it patented?
So we do reduce the solvent. That's one of the key things. We don't want to. You may need a tiny amount of solvent for a particular technical purpose, but most solvent that's in fragrance isn't really doing anything very useful except bulking or inflating. A company's. Well, there's all sorts of reasons, but it can be there for different reasons. It can be, but it's generally a lot of the solvent that you're moving around the world isn't adding a great deal. It's not adding anything to the fragrance. So we do want to reduce that. We want to increase the impact by testing raw materials, understanding which materials have the greatest odor impact, and bearing in mind, not all fragrance materials have the same kind of odor threshold. So we need to understand the odor threshold, how they perform together, how they interact, and there's an awful lot of research and development to test those. So we test our raw materials, we test our fragrances. We have a very specific and very innovative way of formulating with these. They're not simply concentrated fragrances. Reducing the solvent is essential, but it's not simply a matter of concentrating the fragrance. And the whole thing really is a combination of chemistry, of research and development, a great deal of testing of raw materials and testing of finished fragrances. That's how we understand exactly how our fragrance is going to work. And we have a very tough threshold for a fragrance to qualify as EcoBoost. So it has to be able to perform to the same or better performance at 1/10 of the level as a benchmark traditional fragrance. So it's a very tough criteria that it has to meet, and it isn't done simply by concentration, but by a completely different way of formulating and creating a fragrance.
So I hope that answers your question there. And well, to round things off, I've got two more rather general and hard-hitting questions. The first of which is, what are the expected upcoming key regulatory changes in fragrance in the next few years? What do we need to be aware of?
Okay, so there are many things going on, but so one of the important things, and that's a little bit linked to what we were discussing before about making sure that we have the right supply chain to make sure that we can keep the business going, is making sure. So one of the best ways to track that is on the European authorities, on the ECHA, we can see many of the register of intentions of the authorities. So we have a very transparent way of all those changes that are coming in Europe. So on the ECHA, we can see for each substance that we use, if there is a register of intention by any of the EU member states. So let's say that a certain member state has some grounds of concern to think that certain substance we are using in the cosmetic industry or in the chemical industry in general, there is some grounds of concern for being a reprotoxic, or so there is very early stages notification that we get on the ECHA website, and then we can follow how the different things go, how they go into the votation, how they got rejected or accepted, how they go into the next adaptation of technical progress of the CLP regulation, and then how this could affect the cosmetic industry if the scientific committee of cosmetic ingredient is going to defend that, if the mandate, like this scientific opinion has been requested by the European authorities to the scientific committee, what are the future possible restrictions, if it's going to be completely banned or if it's going to be like restricted at certain level. So all this information and all this great transparency help the industry a lot in getting this kind of understanding the impact that that could have on the industry. So there are so many going on that I'm not going to be explaining all of them. We are at the moment
2 hours.
Yes, exactly. But at the moment, that's a very great place to go for all this transparency and tracking down all the things that we use as an industry.
Wonderful topic there. And finally, to round everything up, what do you see as the future trends in fragrance? Whether it's materials, formulation, or packaging.
Wow. I think people really looking for experience and for something extra from fragrances for what I see. So I think people are looking for more than just a great smell. A great smell is kind of non-negotiable, but I think every it's a very vibrant and creative industry, and there's lots of companies that can give you a great smell. But I think what's to elevate and to do more than that and to really engage with your customers, you need to give them something extra. You need to give an experience, and I think that's why you see custom fragrance companies talking more about their technologies. Why I think you see innovative packaging to try and engage with the customer more as well, and us, it's looking for sort of additional benefits, things. So we would have a technology called Aroma Wellness, for example, where we're looking to create additional benefits for people where you can stimulate their well-being in a way. You can create an experience, perhaps a sort of energizing experience, or to assist with happiness, that kind of effect. Those kind of
This neurocosmetic effect.
Neuroscientific, yes, benefits. I think that's a really great technology that we're very happy to introduce. And I think other technologies as well, where you're really trying to create an experience and get a reaction from a customer. So I think that's really what we're looking for, that kind of engagement and something that's beyond simply being a good smell. I think you're really looking for an experience. And I think you can do that through fragrance technology. And I'm sure Mark will add how you can also do it with packaging, that kind of engagement and interactiveness with your fragrance.
Absolutely. Mark, would you agree with that? What would you say is the future of fragrance sampling?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And yeah, Julia, I would say sustainability is very much at the forefront of anybody's mind when it comes to packaging, and certainly sort of sampling and single use. I think there's a lot of focus on, and quite rightly, on kind of materials and recyclability, etc. And there's been huge strides made in recent years, and that's only going to continue. There's only going to be more sort of R&D and investment in that area. But the one thing I would definitely wish to get across is the concept of sampling actually helps educate. It helps making an informed purchase decision, etc. And it's the targeting and accurate distribution of samples and eliminating waste of samples that don't reach the intended consumer, which is probably the biggest focus and the biggest impact that any brand can have at the moment in terms of highlighting, are the samples actually wanted and needed and requested. So I think targeting and distribution is crucial, and maybe that would be a trend that there'll be greater and greater ways, whether that's through brand and distribution or possibly through regulatory action in the years ahead. I'm not too sure. But yeah, that combined with then looking at the materials and specifications to reduce the environmental impact.
Lovely. So
without compromise on impact and quality impressions as well.
Absolutely. So instead of education, it's targeting. That'll be the mantra.
So yeah, targeting and education perhaps, but yeah, I like that.
Both. Wonderful. Well, unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. So thank you guys so much, our wonderful panelists, for all of your insights there. To our viewers, thank you for joining us too. And apologies if we didn't get around to your specific question today. I'm sure the guys will answer it in their own time. So as mentioned at the start of the webinar, maybe if you were a bit late to proceedings and missed the beginning and would like to catch up, this webinar will be available on demand. And our next roundtable will take place on the 5th of September and will cover the beauty packaging trends and innovations for next year. So make sure you join us for that. I'd like to round off by extending a huge thank you once more to our speakers, and thank you to all of you too for watching. Goodbye.